main updates on the Eclipse JKube project, and also I will be featuring or showing a very cool new feature that we've been working on. So I'm Marc Nuri. I work as a software developer for Red Hat. I'm currently maintaining the Fabricate Kubernetes client and the Eclipse JKube. I'll be around the next days here, so if you have any questions regarding these projects, you can reach out to me, and I will be really happy to answer any questions you might have. If not, I'm also available on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on GitHub, Gitter. I'll be really happy to help you out with any questions you have with these projects. So this is the agenda for today. I will start by explaining a little bit what Eclipse JKube is for those of you who don't know it, and what are its main features. Then I will continue by explaining what we've been working on for the last year. And then I will be focusing on the new feature, which is the remote development. It's really cool. So the demo will be focused on this new feature. And then if we have time, we will have a Q&A session for any questions you might have. So yeah, just to be sure that we're all on the same page, please raise your hand if you know or if you've heard about Eclipse JKube before. Okay. Okay, raise your hand if you know what Kubernetes is or you've heard about Kubernetes. Okay, cool. So that's nice. Okay, so basically, JKube is a set of tools and plugins that will help you generate container images for your Java applications and the required cluster configuration manifests to be able to deploy your applications to Kubernetes or OpenShift with ease. It consists of several components. The main component is the Java API. It's a standalone API, and which we call JKube Kit. And then it has several plugins, currently Maven and Gradle, that will allow you to integrate JKube into your project's build process easily. So I really like to use this diagram to explain what JKube is and what are its features. So probably as a Java developer, everything starts by coding, and eventually you will compile and package your application and will generate your jar and war file. So probably everyone here is familiar with these steps. Up until now, or in the early years, you would probably get that package and pass it on to an operations team that would be responsible for deploying your application in a web application platform, in a server, or wherever. However, this trend is changing, and we are now in this DevOps culture where many more of these responsibilities fall in the hands of a developer. So right now, you might be required to deploy your application into Kubernetes. So you are at this step, and you probably feel maybe lost or overwhelmed with the amount of additional tasks that you need to do just to get your application there. And this is where JKube comes in place. So it has these features that will allow you to generate container images, push them to container registries, generate your YAML files, deploy them to the cluster, generate Helm charts, and a huge set of additional other features that will help you in your day-to-day developer tasks. So this is a quick overview of the features that we've seen. I'm not going to explain all of them because we don't have time, but if you go to our project documentation, you will find a lot of the amount of things that the project covers. Okay, so what's new since last year? We've finally graduated the Gradle plugins. We initially released them in a preview mode, and the past year we graduated them. We've been working a lot in improving the user experience and the project stability. The idea is to make it easier for those more advanced deployments to configure them and simplify the configuration process. In addition, we've provided support for Jakarta E, Apple M1, and a lot of other minor features and improvements. Last but not least, the last couple of months, we've been working on this new remote development feature that we will see next, and we will be releasing it in the coming days when we cut version 1.10. Okay, so what's this new remote development feature? This will basically allow you to run and debug code in your local machine while still be able to consume the services that are only available in your cluster, and in addition, to be able to expose your application, which is running locally, to the cluster. So in a nutshell, it's like placing your local machine inside the cluster. It will also allow you to connect your local development tooling, such as a database explorer or whatever, to those cluster services that wouldn't be available otherwise. If we combine this with frameworks such as Quarkus or Micronaut, which allow you to live code or live reloading, it will boost your developer experience. The best thing is that you don't need to install any additional stuff on your machine. It will work just with Java and Maven or Gradle. And you don't need special permissions either in the cluster or in your local machine. So it's basically, you add the plugin, and you will be able to use what we are going to see next. So let's consider this deployment, where you have a pod A, which is a service that is exposed to the internet through an ingress, and then you have a pod D that's consuming this microservice, and the original microservice is consuming maybe a database, a Kafka deployment, I don't know, whatever, a message queue, I don't know, anything that you might have in the cluster. And you want to work on this pod D, on pod A, while being also able to integrate it with the rest of the components of your distributed application. So I guess that this would be something complex right now. And this is when JKube comes into place with the new remote development feature. So what we basically do is we deploy a new pod, which will forward traffic to your local machine. And then we'll be able to connect to the services that are exposed in the cluster, and also replace the service configuration here to expose our local machine instead of the original pod A. Once we stop the remote development session, everything would come back to normal. Okay, so this is maybe if we see this in action, it would be much better. So I prepared a demo application which will basically showcase this. This demo application is based on the Northwind database, which is a demo database that was provided with Microsoft Access in the 90s. And it consists of 3 microservices, each implemented in a different framework. So the idea here is to highlight that JKube is compatible either with Quarkus, Micronaut, Spring Boot, Open Liberty, or whatever. So the main component is this Northwind application, which is basically a REST API that will expose the Northwind database, which contains original data, which is in the cluster. And it's just a front end. This application contains an action that will send email messages. These email messages are sent to a RabbitMQ queue and are processed by the second microservice, which is this one. It's implemented in Micronaut. And basically what it does is takes this message and sends it to Mylinator, which is a disposable email account service. It could send them to any other email account, but in order for you, if you want to check that this is working right now, you would be able to check the email account. And the final service is this order faker, which is implemented in Spring Boot. And what it basically does, it consumes the REST API exposed by Northwind and generates orders. So that service could represent maybe a mobile application or something else in your, again, application ecosystem. The application is kind of simple, but you see that it has many components. And if you would want to now work maybe on the Northwind application and be able to test the mail service and the integration with the rest of components, it would be kind of hard. So with Quarkus, for example, you have Quarkus dev mode. You would launch the application locally, and it will spin up a Postgres application, but you wouldn't be able to check the integration with the rest of the services, or you wouldn't be able to consume live data that's available on the original database. So, okay. This is the application as deployed in a Red Hat Developer Sandbox. For those of you who don't know the Red Hat Developer Sandbox, it's an easy way for you to try Kubernetes. It's a free OpenShift cluster that you get for 30 days or I don't know how much, and you can tinker with it, and then you can renew the subscription, and also, but it's free. The main point here is that I want to show you is that this is a very limited cluster. I don't have any sort of permissions. I don't have anything, and limited resources. The application running is here. Okay, so as I said, it just exposes this Northwind database with data from customers, orders, that kind of stuff. And if you see, new orders are being created. Every 6 or 7 seconds, you will see that a new order is added. We are in 13,015. Now we have a new one. Okay? These orders are being created by this order faker that I explained before. And then this is my Linator, and if I want to, I press this button, we will be sending an email to the Northwind warehouse requesting them to prepare the order. Okay, so this email was received just now. Basically, simple. This was processed by this mail service. Okay? So as I said, if you wanted to work on this, maybe you want to change something or test something else, it would be kind of hard to test this or to work on this with the cluster integration. So now let's see how we can use JKube to work with this. So I have here the project. It has the 3 components that I explained before. So let's say we want to work on the Northwind one. So here I have the OpenShift Maven Plugin, and this is the required configuration to be able to work with this. So basically what I'm saying here is, okay, I'm going to expose my local service, which is this Northwind application, and I want to expose the port 8080. And then I want to consume the Northwind database and the RabbitMQ. Right? Simple. So if I run this, okay, so I'm going to start the new remote dev service. This simple command. Shouldn't be done with this. Okay, so this is actually deploying that container that I told you before, which is here. And if you see the order faker will restart because the application is no longer being served from the cluster. You see that I'm not able to load it. But now I'm going to start the Maven Quarkus dev session. Okay, so if I reload, the application loads. However, this application is no longer in the cluster. This is my local machine. If you could be able to open this in your mobile phones if you want, and you would be able to tinker with what I have here. As I said, if you combine this with something powerful such as Quarkus or maybe Micronaut, let's say we want to change the title or something like that. So we could go here and change the title to something else. So if I reload, you will see that we changed this. We're still able to send these email notifications. So Okay, yeah. So we are still able to send messages to that RabbitMQ queue, and will be processed. We could change something more complicated, like let's say we want to change the sorting of this list. So let's change it to ascending. And now we see the oldest orders first. Same would happen with the Java code. If we want to change for example, the mail template that we're using, let's change the subject to something else, must be prepared. So I send the email, it changed too. Okay, so once we are done with the development session, we can actually stop the remote development service, and everything should go back to the way it was. Okay? So this might be cool for Quarkus and so on. You can start it again. And we can also use, as I said, local tools. For example, in this case, I'm going to connect to the database that's exposed here. So I'm basically able to connect to the database that it wouldn't be available otherwise. You can use this to, for example, generate an entity or something like that. So it's all of these additional features that will, I think, in my opinion, it will boost the developer experience. Okay. As I said, this would also work for the rest of the microservices that we have. So we can check, for example, maybe the order faker. And here we can check the configuration, which is similar. In this case, this would be this component, the order faker, so it actually connects to the Northwind database. So now, let's say that I want to tinker with this other service. So just like we did before, we open a remote development session. However, Spring doesn't offer this live reload. So we have to run. So now I will have two services that are posting fate orders, the one that's in production and the one that's in my local machine. Let's say we change something in the order faker. What's this? Order. So let's say we want to change the company name. Okay, I don't remember exactly the model, but anyway, you get the idea. Basically, it's compatible with any of the frameworks available. If you use it with Micronaut or with Quarkus, the experience is super fluid because you get to live code your application. You use it with Spring Boot. Once they make it better, maybe the experience will be better. But anyway, you get to actually tinker with the application live from your cluster. Okay. Okay, so now time for Q&A. I don't know if you have any questions. Hopefully you have.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, thanks. Great demo. I'm just wondering if you get back to the Developer Sandbox and OpenShift. I'm wondering, have you explored the usage of JKube in fully remote environment? For example, if you press web terminal there.
Here?
No, above. It's near your profile, like here.
Yeah.
So you can press web terminal directly from the OpenShift. And I don't remember if we actually package the JKube as part of the terminal, but you technically can run the very same, so you can like initialize the terminal here. And I'm wondering, and it's like in browser fully, if you investigated some kind of fully remote development with JKube. Because we're very interested in that for like our ecosystem for Eclipse in particular, and the tools we provided on top of it, like Red Hat, OpenShift, Dev Spaces, and Web Terminal. Thank you. So the question is like whether you investigated like fully remote, or it's for now like local to remote only.
So we have like two ways of working. Full remote would probably imply running with more permissions in your local machine, and also probably installing a traffic manager and something like that, which is something that we are not considering because there are other options available for that. The idea here is to make it simple. Just, okay, add the plugin, provide this minimal configuration, the things you want to consume, run it, and then be able to consume it. You are also able to, with JKube, you're also able to debug your running application on Kubernetes. So there's still this option that you have your application running in the container, and then you're able to debug it and maybe hot reload some of the changes that you do while debugging. But the full remote option that might be available in telepresence or any other solutions, that's at least something that we're not considering for now because it would require more permissions or additional tooling.
Okay, thank you. I think we can investigate it together, like fully remote. I don't know why the terminal is not connected, but yeah, it would be really interesting to have the like fully remote environment with no need to switch to desktop at all. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, notice that so the internet connection is poor, and so some of the features are not working correctly, but we were still able to run the application locally and expose it. So even under these more extreme circumstances, this thing is kind of reliable, and that's what I like it the most, that it just works. Also, if I tear down the JKube container, the one that's forwarding traffic, everything should self-heal, and it should reestablish itself. So one of the other pillars, so one was not using external tooling or additional permission. The other one is making it reliable enough so that you can actually work on this. I can tell you that I coded the 3 microservices using the live coding, and the experience was really different to what I'm used to. It was something that really pleasant to code that this way, instead of focusing each time on each microservice and being able to, I don't know. The main difference would be that if I want to test this the other way around, I would need to code it, package it, compile it, create the container image, deploy it to the cluster, then test it. It works, it doesn't work, okay, let's iterate again. And I would need to do the changes, compile, package, create the container image, and deploy it. So that's really slow. However, in this other scenario, it's like super streamlined and I don't know, really agile. I love it. So I'm really inviting you to test the new feature whenever it comes available in the coming weeks or days. So yeah, more questions?
Are there some limits regarding HTTP proxy connections? In our company, we have HTTP proxies connecting to our cloud. Is there any requirement?
So under the hood, I don't know if you've used port forwarding in kubectl or.
No, we don't.
Okay, basically, so that thick line there, it's basically a port forward connection into our container, which opens an SSH session. This SSH session then creates port forward connections, both back and forth. So in reality, it all travels through the original port forward that was opened through the Kubernetes API.
So SSH tunneling?
Yeah. So under the hood, SSH tunneling through a Kube API proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And maybe another question. We started one remote application, so one local, and we had the access to the remote services. Is it possible for a kind of multi-Maven module structures to run multi-local connections?
Yeah. So, sure. So this is the, sorry because it's really small and you can see, but this is a multi-module Maven project. So if I run, I haven't tried it, so I don't know what will happen. But if you run this, it should work, but it will create a container for each service.
Okay.
But it should work. Maybe need to test it. Yeah. Probably. Yeah, I'm just thinking that this is kind of blocking, so each remote dev is blocking. So probably we need to figure out how to make that available. But if that's something that you would find useful for your application or your project, just open an issue once this is. Once you try it, and say, hey, I would like to do this just with a single command. Let's see if we can do it. But it should be feasible. Right now it's not with the current implementation, but it should be. Easy fix. Okay. More questions? Nope. Okay. So thanks a lot for coming.